In the quiet of our kitchen, the ticking of the wall clock was a stark reminder of the routine life Ethan and I had built over the years. I, Meredith Blake, at 34, had juggled my roles as a marketing executive and a mother with what I believed was finesse. Ethan, Zoe, and I were the picture of suburban bliss, or so I thought. "Ethan, can we talk about your spending again?" I asked, my voice steady despite the frustration bubbling beneath. He looked up from his phone, his brow furrowing. "Meredith, you're not going to start this again, are you? It's just a few bucks here and there." "It's every month, Ethan, and it's not just a few bucks." "I'm worried," I pressed on, trying to keep the peace. Ethan sighed, setting his phone down with a theatrical flourish. "Look, I get it. You're the one with the big job, the big paycheck, but can't a guy enjoy life a bit? It's not like we're struggling." I bit back a sharper retort, choosing my words carefully. "I'm not saying you shouldn't, but maybe focus on that promotion you mentioned. We could really plan for the future then." He chuckled, a sound that once charmed me but now felt hollow. "Always so serious, Meredith. Fine, I'll focus on the promotion. Happy?" I wasn't, but I let it slide. Again, our life continued in its usual rhythm until that fateful sunny morning. Ethan and Zoe, my heart and soul, were off for a day out, leaving me to my weekend workload. Waving them goodbye, I felt a twinge of guilt for not joining them, but pushed it aside. Work was my excuse, my shield. Then came the call that shattered everything. "Mrs. Blake?" An unfamiliar voice, somber and heavy, broke through the silence of my home office. "Yes, speaking. Is everything okay?" My heart raced, a premonition of dread settling in. "I'm afraid there's been an accident involving your husband and your daughter," the voice continued, and the world around me blurred. "What? How? Are they okay? Please tell me they're okay." Panic clawed at my throat, each breath a struggle. "Your husband sustained minor injuries. He's stable. But your daughter, she's in emergency surgery. It's serious." Emergency surgery. The words echoed in my mind, a relentless torment. I couldn't breathe, think, or move. Zoe, my vibrant, sweet Zoe, in surgery because of what? An accident? How? I stumbled through the motions, informing my boss, driving to the hospital, a numb automaton driven by a single thought: Zoe. The hospital was a blur of white walls and hushed voices. I barely registered the words of the doctors, the sympathetic glances of the nurses. All I could focus on was the door to the operating room, where my daughter fought for her life. And then my phone rang, a jarring melody in the silence of my despair. Glancing at the caller ID, I saw it was Ethan's parents' number. "Hello." My voice was a whisper, the effort to speak monumental. "Hey, Mom," chirped a voice, bright and unburdened. Zoe's voice. Confusion reigned. "Zoe? But how? You're supposed to be—" "In surgery?" she finished, her laughter tinkling through the line. "Nope, I'm at Grandma and Grandpa's. Dad dropped me off this morning. Didn't he tell you?" The room spun. If Zoe was safe, then who was in that operating room? "Zoe, honey, I have to go. I'll call you back, okay?" "Okay, Mom. Love you." "Love you too," I whispered, the words heavy with a confusion and relief so profound it hurt. I turned back to the hospital, to the chaos of emotions waiting within. The mystery of the girl in the operating room loomed over me, a shadow threatening the very foundation of our lives. As I stepped back into the sterile light of the hospital, I knew one thing for certain: our lives would never be the same again. As I navigated the corridors back to the operating room, the pieces of this perplexing puzzle refused to align. The revelation that Zoe was safe, miles away from this sterile environment, offered a breath of relief smothered by a new, growing dread. Who, then, was the girl lying vulnerable on the operating table? I found Ethan in a private room, his injuries seemingly minor. The sight of him, so carefree amidst the chaos, ignited a fire within me I hadn't known existed. "Ethan," I began, my voice calm but cold, "if Zoe is with your parents, who was in the car with you?" Ethan's expression faltered, the carelessness giving way to panic. It was just a friend of Zoe's. We were giving her a lift." "A friend?" I echoed, skepticism lacing my words. "And her parents? Were they aware she was with us?" He avoided my gaze, his discomfort palpable. "Yes, of course. I called them. They know." The lies were too thin, too fragile. My heart raced, not just with anger, but with a sense of betrayal so deep it threatened to engulf me. "Ethan, I need the truth. Now," I demanded, stepping closer. He winced, the facade crumbling. Okay, it was Hannah, Zoe's classmate. Her mom and I, we've been..." The confession hung in the air, a tangible, suffocating fog. Ethan's affair, hidden beneath layers of deceit, now laid bare. But it was the casualty of this illicit connection that shook me to my core. You risked our daughter's safety, our family, for an affair? My voice was a whisper, a mix of disbelief and fury. Ethan's attempts at justification were drowned out by the roar of betrayal in my ears. I left him there, in his room of lies, the weight of his deceit pressing down on me. My next steps were mechanical, driven by a need for confirmation, for truth amidst the web of lies. The hospital staff directed me to Hannah's parents, where I was met with a scene of despair. Hannah's mother, a woman I recognized from school events but never truly knew, was a reflection of my own turmoil. I'm Meredith, Zoe's mom, I introduced myself, the words tasting bitter. Hannah, she's in surgery because of Ethan? Her voice broke, a mirror to my heart. Yes, I had no idea about any of this. I admitted, the shame of my ignorance a heavy cloak. The conversation that followed was a blur of apologies and assurances, but one thing was clear. Ethan's actions had consequences far beyond our family. The damage was done, irrevocably altering the lives of all involved. As I left the hospital that day, the clarity of my resolve crystallized with each step. Ethan's betrayal was not just a violation of our vows, but a danger to our daughter and others. This deception would not go unanswered. I needed to act, not just for my sake, but for Zoe, for Hannah, for every innocent life touched by Ethan's selfishness. The road ahead was uncertain, fraught with pain and legal battles, but one thing was sure. Ethan would face the consequences of his actions. The drive home was a journey of determination. With each mile, I shed the remnants of the woman who once believed in the facade of our perfect life. In her place emerged someone stronger, fueled by a righteous anger and a fierce protectiveness over her daughter. Ethan's deception had shattered our family, but from the ruins I vowed to rebuild, stronger and wiser. The truth was my weapon, and with it, I would ensure justice was served. The following days were a whirlwind of activity, each action deliberate, aimed at uncovering the full extent of Ethan's betrayal. I moved with a clarity of purpose, fueled by the betrayal that had upended our lives. I started by securing legal counsel, a sharp, no-nonsense lawyer named Diane who specialized in family law. She listened intently as I laid out everything, from Ethan's requests for money to the accident and his affair. We'll need concrete evidence if you want to pursue this in court, Diane advised, her tone serious but not without empathy. Bank statements, communications between Ethan and the other woman, anything that can substantiate your claims. Armed with Diane's advice, I turned my attention to gathering the necessary proof. I delved into our financial records, uncovering a pattern of withdrawals and expenses that now made sickening sense. Each transaction was a breadcrumb leading back to Ethan's deceit. But it was the discovery of Ethan's old phone, discarded in a drawer, that proved to be the linchpin. Powered on, it revealed a treasure trove of messages and photos that painted a vivid picture of his infidelity. With each piece of evidence collected, my resolve hardened. Ethan had not only endangered our daughter's well-being, but had shattered the trust and safety of our family unit. His actions demanded consequences. It was during this period of meticulous planning that Ethan, oblivious to the storm brewing, attempted to reach out. "Meredith, we need to talk about Zoe. And us," he pleaded over the phone, his voice laced with a desperation that once might have moved me. "Us? There is no us, Ethan. Not anymore," I replied, my voice steady, devoid of the warmth he was accustomed to. "But Meredith, You what, Ethan? You're sorry?" I cut him off, my patience for his excuses long gone. "Save it. I'm speaking to you through my lawyer from now on." The line went dead, a symbolic end to any remnants of our relationship. My next steps were clear, each action calculated to protect Zoe and ensure Ethan faced the full repercussions of his actions. I met with Diane again, armed with the evidence and a steely determination. "We file for divorce," I stated, no trace of doubt in my voice. "And I want full custody of Zoe. He's proven he can't be trusted with her safety." Diane nodded, her expression resolute. "I'll prepare the papers. We'll also go after him for child support and alimony. With this evidence, we have a strong case." As I left Diane's office, the weight of my decisions weighed heavily on me. Yet the path forward was clear. Ethan's betrayal had irrevocably altered the course of our lives. but I would do whatever it took to ensure Zoe's future was secure and happy. The battle lines were drawn, and while the road ahead promised to be fraught with challenges, I was ready. Ready to confront Ethan, to protect Zoe, and to reclaim our lives from the ruins of his deceit. The legal proceedings began with a precision that mirrored my newfound resolve. Diane filed the divorce papers, and we prepared for the initial court hearing. The evidence we gathered was damning, a silent testament to Ethan's betrayal and negligence. As the court date approached, Ethan attempted reconciliation, his messages oscillating between apologies and accusations. But I had shut the door on that chapter of our life, my focus solely on securing Zoe's future. On the day of the hearing, the courthouse loomed large, a symbol of the justice I sought. Ethan was already there, looking diminished, a far cry from the confident man I once knew. "Meredith, please, can we not do this here?" he pleaded, his voice barely above a whisper as we waited outside the courtroom. "Do what, Ethan?" "Face the consequences of your actions," I replied, my gaze steady on him. "This is exactly where we need to be." He shook his head, the facade of contrition slipping as he hissed, "You're blowing this out of proportion. It was just a mistake." "A mistake?" The words were sharp, laced with disbelief. "You endangered our daughter, Ethan. You destroyed our family for an affair. This is the consequence of your actions, not an overreaction." Before he could respond, Diane appeared, her presence a calming force. "It's time," she said, ushering me away from Ethan and towards the courtroom. Inside, the proceedings were a blur, the judge's voice a distant echo as the reality of the situation settled over me. Diane was relentless, presenting the evidence of Ethan's affair and financial irresponsibility with clinical precision. Ethan's lawyer attempted to mitigate the damage, arguing for leniency and shared custody. But the evidence spoke louder than any of his pleas, painting a picture of a man who had not only been unfaithful, but had recklessly endangered his child. When the judge finally spoke, his words were a balm to the wounds Ethan had inflicted. "Given the evidence presented, I am granting Miss Blake full custody of Zoe. Mr. Blake will have supervised visitation rights until further notice. As for financial support, given the circumstances and Mr. Blake's actions, he will provide child support and alimony." The gavel's finality marked the end of one chapter and the beginning of a new, uncertain path. Ethan's face, pale and defeated, was the last I saw before turning away, Diane's reassuring presence guiding me out of the courtroom. Outside, the air felt different, lighter, as if the weight of the past months had been lifted, if only slightly. The battle was far from over, but for the first time in what felt like an eternity, there was a glimmer of hope. Ethan's voice broke through the haze of my thoughts. "Meredith, wait, please." I stopped, turning to face him, the man I no longer recognized. "There's nothing left to say, Ethan. You have your consequences to face, and I have our daughter to protect." With that, I walked away, the echo of my steps a testament to the strength I had found in the face of betrayal. Ethan's attempts at reconciliation were left unanswered, a chapter firmly closed as I focused on building a future for Zoe and me, free from the shadows of his deceit. In the weeks following the court's decision, the reality of our new lives began to take shape. Ethan's fall from grace was rapid, his actions laid bare for all to see. The community, once a shared space of friendships and gatherings, became a battleground of whispers and judgment aimed at Ethan. I focused on Zoe, ensuring she felt as little of the fallout as possible. But children are perceptive, and she sensed the change, her bright demeanor shadowed by the events unfolding around her. It was during one of our afternoon walks, a time we had designated for open conversations, that Zoe's resilience shone through, her words cutting to the heart of the matter. "Mom, why is Dad not around anymore?" she asked, her innocent eyes searching mine for answers. I knelt down, taking her hands in mine, the weight of the conversation pressing down. "Honey, your dad made some choices that weren't good for us. Right now, it's important we focus on being safe and happy together." Zoe nodded, a maturity beyond her years settling over her features. "Is Dad sad?" "Yes, sweetie, he is. But it's important he understands his actions have consequences," I explained, hoping to instill in her a sense of right and wrong, shaped not by bitterness but by understanding. Zoe hugged me, her small arms a testament to the strength we had found together. "I love you, Mom. We're okay, just us two." I love you too, Zoe. Yes, we are, I affirmed, my heart swelling with love and determination for my daughter's future. As we continued our walk, I thought about Ethan's attempts to contact us. Each call, each message, was a plea for understanding, a plea I could not afford to heed. His actions had set this course, and the consequences were his to bear. It wasn't long before the financial repercussions of Ethan's choices became apparent. His job, once a source of pride, became untenable amidst the scandal. Child support and alimony payments began to strain his resources, a constant reminder of the responsibilities he had tried to escape. One day as I opened the mail, I found a letter from Ethan, different from the others. It was an apology, not just to me, but to Zoe, an acknowledgement of the pain he had caused. I read it, the words blurring as emotions conflicted within me. It was the first step, perhaps, towards genuine remorse. But the path to forgiveness, if it was to be found, would be long and fraught with the memories of his betrayal. The doorbell rang, pulling me from my thoughts. It was Diane, documents in hand, a look of resolve on her face. Meredith, we've got a bit more to sort through. Ethan's falling behind on the payments. It's time to enforce the court's decision, she stated, her voice firm. I nodded, the reality of our situation settling in. Let's do what we need to, Diane. For Zoe. As Diane outlined the next steps, I realized this was but another chapter in the long road ahead. Ethan's downfall, brought on by his own actions, was a cautionary tale, one I hoped Zoe would learn from, but never have to experience firsthand. Our journey was far from over, but with each step I felt the resilience and love between Zoe and me growing stronger, a beacon guiding us through the aftermath of Ethan's choices. In the aftermath of our legal victories, life began to settle into a new rhythm, one where the absence of Ethan's presence became the norm rather than the exception. Zoe adapted with a resilience that amazed me, her laughter returning to fill the spaces of our home that had once been shadowed by conflict. It was during one of our weekend retreats, a small cabin by the lake where we'd found solace in the simplicity of nature, that Zoe broached the subject of her father once more. "Mom, do you think Dad is okay?" she asked one evening, the sunset casting golden hues across the water. I paused, considering her question. "I think your dad has a lot of things to figure out, Zoe, but we've got each other, and that's what matters." Zoe nodded, a wisdom in her acceptance. "I just wish he understood how much he hurt us," she said softly. Her words echoed my own sentiments, a reflection of the journey we'd embarked upon. "Me too, sweetheart, but we're moving forward, and that's what counts." Our conversation was interrupted by the sound of my phone ringing, a call from Diane that I had been anticipating. I stepped away, answering with a quiet hello. "Meredith, it's Diane. I have news. Ethan's been held accountable for the missed payments. The court's enforced a lien on his assets. It's a significant step towards ensuring Zoe's future is secure," she informed me, her voice steady and reassuring. A wave of relief washed over me, tempered by the knowledge of what this meant for Ethan. "Thank you, Diane. This is good news. For Zoe," I replied, my thoughts on my daughter, who watched me from a distance. Returning to Zoe, I shared the news in terms we had come to understand, a language of moving forward and healing. "Zoe, we're going to be okay. We've got a bit more security now, thanks to the court's decision." Zoe smiled, her understanding clear. "I know, Mom. I'm glad, but I'm okay as long as I have you." The weekend passed in a blend of conversations and quiet moments, each reinforcing the bond between us, a testament to the strength we'd found in the face of adversity. Back home, the reality of our situation continued to unfold, but with each passing day, the shadows of Ethan's choices grew fainter, replaced by the light of our resilience and determination to build a life defined not by what we had lost, but by what we had gained. Zoe's progress at school, my advancements at work, and the support of friends and family painted a picture of a future bright with possibility. Ethan, for all the turmoil he had caused, became a footnote in our story, a reminder of the challenges we had overcome. As I tucked Zoe into bed one night, her words filled me with a sense of hope and purpose. "Mom, we're like a team, right? Against the world?" I smiled, kissing her forehead. "Yes, Zoe, against the world and winning." Our journey was a testament to the power of love and resilience, a narrative shaped not by the betrayal we had endured, but by the strength we had discovered within ourselves. Ethan's downfall was his own making, a path chosen through deceit and disregard. But for Zoe and me, the path we walked was one of healing, of justice, and ultimately of triumph. The end of our story was not an end at all, but a beginning, a new chapter filled with the promise of joy, growth, and the unbreakable bond between a mother and her daughter.